I just come to the conclusion that you are in fact responsible for the death of Robert Chappell.
I absolutely had nothing to do with Rob's disappearance.
Bob Chappell went missing from his yacht on Australia Day last year.
Mr. Chappell's de facto partner was charged with his murder.
Susan Neill-Fraser is serving a sentence of 23 years.
We're extremely disappointed with the outcome, but we're just going to keep fighting until we see Mum acquitted.
What happened to Bob? Where is he? Where is his body?
It's a case where there's no body, there's no witnesses, there's no real murder weapon. It's all about circumstantial evidence.
This just doesn't add up.
Trying to find fresh and compelling evidence is like looking for a needle in a haystack.
They're all acts of sabotage. I was hoping this misadventure can only be a homicide.
Do I think she's innocent? Is she a murderer?
We're playing in an underworld environment.
And to think there are murderers out there.
The same car is following us.
They're doing everything to stop the truth. I'd like to get out!
Don't know exactly who killed Bob Chappell.
It was weird from the very first moment.
It was frightening watching her unravelling.
I know that I must be a suspect.
I felt physically sick.
This woman is very, very cunning.
So you won't speak to me unless there's 10 grand?
This is what I call really important evidence.
What was that girl's DNA doing on the yacht?
If this can happen to my family, then I think this could happen to anyone.
Mum had a phone call around 7 a.m. from the police radio room saying, "Oh, are you the owner of Four Winds?" "Oh, yes, yes." "Oh, it's sinking on its mooring. It's sunk." And it's a painful recording to hear. There's just this silence on the other end of the phone. And then I think Mum said something like, Bob's on board. I've just tried to call him, he didn't answer the mobile.
The day before, Sue had left her partner, Bob Chappell, working alone on their yacht. He planned to sleep on board. But by morning, he had disappeared.
Just after 7 this morning, police found the man's 16.5-metre sailing ketch, Four Winds, taking on water just off Maryville Esplanade in Sandy Bay.
Police remain baffled as to what's happened, but murder hasn't been ruled out.
The Marine Police boarded the vessel. They didn't know why it was sinking at that time. Took a pump on board to start pumping water out of it. It was then taken under tow and taken around to Constitution Dock. There were some serious concerns about the fact that there was sabotage to it, so if Mr Chappell had fallen overboard accidentally, why would he have damaged the yacht before he did that? So even if it ended up being just a missing person, we would always conduct a fairly thorough investigation to try and ascertain what had happened to him.
I wasn't taking it seriously until I saw Mum. She was bent over and she was doing that sort of protective, she was like this, and she was I remember her just being completely out of it. And I remember getting to Allison Street and I remember Mum was walking around and she would not stop talking. She kept just saying, Bob, Bob, like it was the weird, It was awful. It was really awful, to the point I remember I picked up the phone to the GP and I got a script for Mum for Valium. So I gave Mum some of this, and then the police officers turned up and they did an interview with Mum, and they were asking her questions. She was just exhausted and out of it. It was frightening for me. It was frightening watching her unravelling.
In the early days, Sue wasn't a suspect. There was a statement taken from her by a uniformed constable, because that's what we do in missing person cases. My detectives went to her house the next day and formalised that into a slightly more detailed statement.
Sue told police that she left Bob alone on the yacht at 2 p.m. Taking their only dinghy, she tied it outside the yacht club and went shopping at Bunnings. Then she went home for the night. The next morning, Bob had disappeared, the yacht was sinking, and the dinghy was found untied, floating near the rocks.
I'm the Tasmania correspondent for The Australian. I covered the initial trial and followed the case ever since, really. I think one of the shocking things about this case from the start was the fact that a well-known, well-respected member of the community disappeared overnight on Australia Day in a popular suburb where there are lots of yachts and people coming and going. In the days and weeks that followed, it became apparent that it wasn't a disappearance as such, that the police did believe that there was foul play involved. And it also became fairly quickly apparent that Sue Neill-Fraser was in the frame for the disappearance.
Police brought Sue in for a formal interview.
From the yacht club, you went to Bunnings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what I did.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what I did.
Initially, you indicated that you may have been there for up to 5 hours, which to me seems extraordinary.
But I actually, I know. I don't remember saying that, and I'm sure I did.
Do you understand why we're asking this? Because
absolutely,
on the evidence that we have, is you're the last person to see your Bob alive.
Yeah, I know.
Or one of the last people.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, and I know that I must be a suspect.
We had daily meetings. Part of that meeting was, let's review what we found out the day before, and let's discuss all the possible scenarios about what might have happened to Bob. As time went on over those 8 months, we always came back to Susan Fraser.
Witnesses began to come forward. There were stories of a strained marriage. An old friend of Sue's claimed that years before, she plotted to kill Bob. Another witness saw a woman going out to the yacht that night. Then, police caught Sue in a lie about her alibi. She didn't stay home that evening. Around midnight, Sue returned to the shore of Sandy Bay.
We're aware that you rang Robert's sister Anne in Sydney and that you told her you went down there that night.
I can't remember.
You told her that you went down there in your car and that you drove around at the Maribel Esplanade, shone your lights out, couldn't see anything, and that you drove back home. Why would you say that? It's a different version again.
I don't know, but I can't explain that, but I did not drive down.
Why has she lied to us? What's this all about? And why is she changing her story as we go along the path?
Initially, when Bob went missing, we of course had total faith in the police, but we started to get quite concerned about the quality of the investigation and more aware that they were very much only looking at Mum as a suspect. We started to realise that the power of the police is so big. And you realise, what chance do you have? And it's turned our lives into an absolute nightmare.
I just come to the conclusion that you are in fact responsible for the death of Robert Chappell. You're not prepared to give that up. I'll plea to you now, once and once only, to tell the truth and to give up where Robert Chappell's body is so that we can give some closure to everyone in the family over his whole saga.
Well, I think it's a dreadful accusation, and I absolutely had nothing to do with Rob's disappearance.
Police arrested the 55-year-old woman this morning after a long investigation.
Mr. Chappell's de facto partner of 20 years was taken into custody and charged with his murder.
Susan Blythe Neill-Fraser sat in the dock of Hobart's Magistrates Court, charged with his murder. Neill-Fraser was refused bail. She remains in custody.
This business has just about broken my heart and soul. I mean, you wrote down the most dreadful thing you could imagine happening to somebody. This is it. But I wonder how many other people are in Australian jails in this situation.
After Mum was arrested, we were really empowered to tell what I saw as being the truth. If this can happen to my family, then I think this could happen to anyone.
This used to be my life. Then my team and I found Monday.com.
Discover the magic of reading with The Advertiser and Sunday Mail's My Magical Story collection, featuring your favourite Disney and Pixar characters. Collect all 15 books for just $2.80 each when you buy the paper.
The people in South Australia. What a place to live.
And to have support for things that make it even better.
To us, that's big too.
When pain feels this tough, choose Panadol Extra. Fights 5 types of tough pain, including migraine headache.
We travel down roads dusty and cellars musty. We know gin is in and good whiskey's never out, while our passion for wine remains devout. We taste, not in haste. We trouble over bubbles. Search the world for beer and the reasons here in Dan Murphy's belief as a beer, spirit and wine lover. There's always more to discover.
Okay, here's the deal.
Green Book has been nominated for 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. It's also the winner of 3 Golden Globes.
Unbelievable. Oh, that was a good time.
Green Book, now playing.
"65-year-old Bob Chappell was last seen on his yacht Four Winds on Australia Day. De facto partner of 20 years was taken into custody and charged with his murder.
Susan Blythe Neill-Fraser sat in the dock of Hobart's Magistrates Court, charged with his murder.
My family was relatively normal. There was a divorce and then new relationships on both sides. We'd all celebrate occasions and come together, and we were a very run-of-the-mill, middle-class family. My husband and I had only just been married at a beautiful wedding with Mum and Bob when Bob went missing.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and stud muffin. On behalf of Sue in particular, and Sue and myself, thank you for coming here today.
Bob was quite eccentric. I don't know, he had quite a sort of dark sense of humour.
That we don't have a lot of those nasty things you have on the mainland. This is the good news. There are no depots, no brown snakes, no tigers. Now the bad news is they're all tiger snakes.
Mum and Bob had a very close relationship. It was fiery because it was two people with amazing minds discussing things. So it could get heated, but only in a verbal way, never physically.
Bob was a well-known radiation specialist at Royal Hobart Hospital. The yacht was his retirement dream. He and Sue planned to spend their days on long sailing trips. They'd only owned the Four Winds for a month before Bob disappeared.
We felt that everyone in Tasmania thought that Sue must be guilty. There were very few people around us that could see that, this woman might be innocent or is innocent. I wanted to touch base with people that I knew, and so I rang Eve Ash, my first boss. I started working for her when I was 15, and after that I stayed really good friends with her. She was like a mentor.
I was in the botanical gardens on a beautiful summer's day, enjoying my grandson's first birthday. And I got a phone call from Mark Bowles, who used to work with me. He was in shock. The whole family was in shock because it looked like Bob was dead, but they didn't know. So it was weird from the very first moment. I don't know Sue, I've never met Sue. And, did she murder Bob? Did she accidentally kill him and she can't tell her family? Maybe that's a possibility. Could she have just murdered Bob and then wanted to cover it up? I don't know, everything I've read about it just doesn't add up. And there's questions. I really wanted to help the family. The first thing I did when I got to Hobart was I wanted to go and see the yacht because I felt I needed to see the crime scene. I thought it was really important to document everything, so I took a camera with me because I've got a background in corporate training videos, but this was something totally different. No one had sailed the yacht since Bob disappeared. It was so eerie. I felt like something horrible had happened. I didn't like the look, the smell, the feel. I felt physically sick. The assumption is that he was killed down there.
Yeah.
And so therefore his body had to be brought up and out and off.
Yeah.
There were ropes found cut up there and wound as if to form some sort of really rough winch, but we can't understand how that would work because, for instance, if he was killed down here, which given the blood splatters, you could infer that might have happened. It would be pretty hard for one person to drag a body up through there.
And we don't know if they're trying to say she did it in the afternoon and then came back to try and sabotage the boat later on or what. Don't know. Don't know at this point what they're trying to say. The police told us that we could come down to Constitution Dock where the boat had been towed. And when we came down here, there were two detectives here and they said, well, we've had forensics here. They've taken all their photos, they've done their thing. And we were sort of saying, but there's all of these things wrong, this doesn't look right, and there was still water coming in. We were like, well, we've got to get it onto dry land, When Mum sort of challenged them about the boat not being searched properly, this is the police, they came out and said to the media that if anything were to have been found on the boat, that it would have been put there after that, because they'd thoroughly searched it. So we're sort of sitting there going, well, we know that's not, we know it's not accurate. Mum knows it's not accurate.
So Bob's son Tim arranged to meet with you and he was actually probing you. What did he say the police had said?
He said, we know she did it, we know she's guilty. And he said, we're 100% certain. He said, well, he was down pulling up the floorboards and he was hit over the head from behind and there was blood everywhere. And then we went into this thing where I said, well, how can you say that? How could you, I mean, you know, I'm thinking, how could you even know what he was doing? How can you make those assumptions unless you were there? He said, we weren't sure at first whether Sue did it herself or had other people do it, that's Mum. But now he said it looks like it was her that did the whole thing.
After we visited the boat, we came back to Sarah's and everybody was talking about what happened to Bob, what could have happened to Bob. It was like this giant, weird brainstorming.
My first reaction was, shit, he's suicide. I guess I'm just more prepared to accept that anyone, if they're in a dark enough place, and particularly if they've been drinking, he did drink every single night, and he got quite worked up every night. So I could accept that had happened.
We were just exploring the suicide theory.
It sits really uncomfortably with me, but what if in an irrational state after a few drinks and thinking I'm all alone out here and, you know, Sue wants to take off and sail around the world and I can't do this, and he just thought, right, he sabotaged the boat, and then he realised that it was going to sink, and I don't know, what if he jumped in and tried to swim ashore? What if he thought, well, now I've done this, what's my life going to be like?
Was there no coroner's report?
Not yet. He's not even been declared dead. He's still missing.
Well, they still
So how can they arrest her for murder?
Exactly.
In all of this, none of us can absolutely say to someone, this is what happened.
If I turn around and say, I know she didn't do it, then I'm saying I know she didn't do it because I've known her. She's my mother and I've known her, and I know her personality, I know the relationship. But it's a subjective thing.
If I am wrong that Sue is innocent, then that puts into question every judgment I have ever made on any person in all my life.
The family were in shock. Sue was in shock. The thought that she would be found guilty was just not even considered. No one could have ever predicted what would happen at that trial.
Discover the magic of reading with the Advertiser and Sunday Mail's My Magical Story collection, featuring your favourite Disney and Pixar characters. Collect all 15 books for just $2.80 each when you buy the paper.
The people in South Australia. What a place to live.
And to have support for things that make it even better.
To us, that's big too.
When pain feels this tough, choose Panadol Extra. Fights 5 types of tough pain, including migraine headache.
Can you hear me calling out your name? You know that I'm falling and I don't know what to say. I'll speak a little louder, I'll even shout. You know that I'm proud and I can't get the words out. Oh, I wanna be with you everywhere. Oh, my store.
Olay from Chemist Warehouse. It restores firmness and reduces the appearance of wrinkles. Olay Regenerist Day and Night Creams are $24.49 each. Live, look, feel fabulous at Chemist Warehouse.
Susan Neill-Fraser has pleaded not guilty to murdering her partner of 18 years and escalating tensions about the cost of repairs to the yacht that drove her to murder. The trial is expected to take 4 weeks and we'll hear from police, marine experts and Mr Chappell's children.
Without a doubt, the Sue Neill-Fraser case is the most well-known murder case in Tasmanian history. From a journalistic point of view, I guess the local media saw it as a very juicy case, and I think it has, all those elements of a great crime novel, really. Mystery, prime suspect, some other suspects. It's got everything, really.
We were absolutely naive as a family to the criminal justice system altogether. We had never had any experience with the police, the media, the legal system, and we took it for granted that Mum could never be convicted because the evidence was so shoddy.
In Sue's case, there were 60 witnesses for the prosecution and only 1 for the defence. Sue. A lot of the witnesses were first responders, forensic people, police, people who were nearby. But nobody has seen a murder. Nobody has seen Sue on that yacht.
With no body and no murder weapon, the prosecution case was circumstantial.
The best way to describe a circumstantial case would be Lindy Chamberlain, which most Australians know about, where you don't have a body, where you don't have any particular motive, where you have no eyewitnesses to anything. Look, the way you build a circumstantial case is that you say, look, one piece of information or evidence on its own might mean nothing, but if you put it together, you get a fact here, a fact there, a fact there and a fact there, and if you marry them all up, you've got a hypothesis that's consistent with guilt.
The prosecution argued that Sue went back to the Four Winds late on the night Bob disappeared. She used a wrench to hit Bob on the head from behind and winched his body up on deck and into their dinghy. Then Sue threw him into the Derwent River, weighing him down with a fire extinguisher.
Philip Triffett was the star witness for the prosecution, showing that Sue had premeditated this murder because he said that Sue had plotted to kill Bob 10 years before and had plotted to kill her brother Patrick as well.
Philip Triffett told police about Susan Neill-Fraser telling him of a plan to kill her partner, Bob Chappell. He said Neill-Fraser wanted to wrap him in chicken wire and dump him over a boat.
I simply do not understand why some Crown witnesses, people who I had previously got on well with, began giving increasingly hostile statements. It simply wasn't accurate, and they knew it wasn't accurate, and I certainly knew it wasn't accurate, so it's just a dreadful business.
The DPP said there was no reliable account of Neill-Fraser's whereabouts on the night of the crime, and she told barefaced lies to police. She was constantly changing stories.
So in the Sue Neill-Fraser case, there were two police interviews. The prosecution, I think, was asserting that she'd told lies. There are reasons people often tell lies when they're speaking to police, and it doesn't necessarily mean that a person is guilty of a particular offence, but they certainly can be used by the prosecution as part of building its case against an individual.
Sue's lies were a big feature, and I think that really was her downfall.
Sue's defence relied on forensic evidence. A large sample of DNA was found on the Four Winds after Bob went missing. It belonged to a 15-year-old homeless girl named Megan Vass. The defence put her forward as a suspect. But in court, Megan Vass denied ever being on the boat.
For her DNA to have gotten there, it begs the question, did she go out to the yacht? And to this day, we don't know what the true story is of Megan Vass's involvement with Bob's disappearance or with the Four Winds.
The jury has begun deliberating in the trial of a Hobart woman accused of murdering her long-time de facto.
Justice Alan Blow urged the jury to put aside their emotions and any prejudices they have against police or people who can afford to buy yachts.
I remember the feeling that I had walking into that courtroom, and it was really, really eerie. I could actually pick up the emotion and the fear that Sue must have been feeling, and I can actually feel it now talking about it.
I was sure I'd be acquitted. I couldn't conceive that the injustice would stretch to conviction.
Because of the lies that she apparently told police, that coupled with the overwhelming circumstantial evidence was enough, I think, for a lot of people to conclude that she was guilty.
There's something about convictions that it creates an emotion that you can actually taste. Like I can taste it at the moment and you feel it. You can feel walls coming in on you, even though I'm not the one facing a prison sentence. It was the worst thing that I've been a part of in my life, the worst moment.
I just say that we're extremely disappointed with the outcome tonight. This is not how we expected to go at all, and this is certainly not the last you'll see of us here. We're just going to keep fighting until we see Mum acquitted.
Very painful. And I realised the other day that when we have children, if we have children, she won't be there and I won't have Bob. You know, the two most important sort of adult figures are going to be absent from my life, and I have to step up to the mark. But yeah.
Discover the magic of reading with the Advertiser and Sunday Mail's My Magical Story collection, featuring your favourite Disney and Pixar characters. Collect all 15 books for just $2.80 each when you buy the paper.
The Australian Government is investing in faster freight connections as part of a 10-year, $75 billion commitment to support our nation. To learn more about projects close to you, visit the Building Our Future website. Authorised by the Australian Government, Canberra.
The people in South Australia, what a place to live.
And to have support for things that make it even better.
To us, that's big too.
She's covered
she's up to date with the vaccinations, like, you know, so she just won't get it as bad. And he said, oh no, there's lots of other strains.
RAA members, shake your energy bills into shape with Simply Energy's exclusive member offer of 25% off electricity usage charges and 18% off gas usage charges when you pay on time. Call 138882 or switch online today.
I have this overwhelming reaction to injustice that comes from having about 80 members of my family killed in the Holocaust, and there's nothing I could do about that. But I can do something about the Sue Neill-Fraser case. And I heard a lot of rumours and a lot of gossip and a lot of horrible media, so it just made me think, okay, I'm going to find out the truth.
60 witnesses gave evidence at Sue's trial, but Eve searches for anyone that may have been missed.
Hi, my name's Eve Ash. I am interested in talking to you about the Sue Neill-Fraser case. Well, I think there's a lot of questions that haven't been answered. There are things that don't add up. I'm not going to film anything. I was just hoping to be able to talk to you. Hello? Hello? I know you've said all this before to the police, but I just would really love to be able to speak. All right. Sorry to bother you. Thanks very much. Bye.
A Hobart local claims to have vital information, but he won't talk for free.
Well, it's a matter of how much you're prepared to pay for what I have. If you're not prepared to pay my number, well, you know, I'm not interested in talking to you.
But were you joking about the amount? Like, I really didn't know whether you were.
No, I'm not joking. I can deal with the money, so, yeah.
So you're fine. So you won't speak to me unless there's 10 grand in the equation?
Exactly so, yes. So take it or leave it. See you later.
People in this town do not want to talk. As soon as you say, oh, it's about the Sue Neill-Fraser case, oh, you know, she's in jail now where she belongs, or, you know, I'm not going to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about it. And what about the other guy who asked me for $10,000 to speak to him? No. No. Nobody wants to talk. Nobody wants to talk, and so I don't know how this case is going to get solved. I need somebody who's investigated many homicides, understands how to process facts and statements and information, and can ask the right questions. And I've found somebody who can do that. Colin McLaren's a former homicide investigator who's been involved in numerous task forces. He even investigated the mafia. So he's got nerves of steel, which should work well for Tasmania.
Most of my career was as a detective. All of the task forces I worked on, there was 4 in total, they were all to do with murders, some multiple murders, police executions, children, pedophilia murders, even to mafia hits or mafia murders.
In the lead up to Colin coming, I was kind of feeling a bit intimidated, and I thought the best way is to be really prepared. So I went overboard. I got exhibition screens and crime scene photos and maps and huge printouts, and I just did this massive preparation right in my living room. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, come in. I want to show you some of these crime scene photos that were taken by police most of them over that first day.
The importance of crime scene photos, I guess, is summed up by the adage, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And if the photos are taken in situ, that's the important thing, as the scene was discovered, they're gold.
So the first thing, once they'd pumped out the yacht and they found this cut pipe behind this toilet.
Yeah. That doesn't look like a rough attempt at sabotaging, does it? That's a clean, neat cut.
I was told a hacksaw would be needed, but another yachty said a very sharp knife could do that, a big knife. And there was this knife, but that was Sue's fruitcake knife, and it was found, strangely, lying around here. Look at this.
So the knife is in a location where it shouldn't be. It's big enough to cause all sorts of strife. It's interesting.
And all that remained of Bob, and I find this photo really powerful because Bob was always smoking his pipe, and there it is, just left there.
That indicates he was in the saloon at the time. You would think that, maybe he was disturbed at that point.
The police believe that Sue killed Bob downstairs in the yacht's saloon. She used rope and a winch to drag his body up 2 flights of stairs and onto the deck. Then she used the dinghy to take him out to deep water. Bob's body has never been found.
Well, clearly I've got to get down to Hobart, and I've got to get around to every potential witness in this, because what we see in these crime scene photographs, so much is unexplained, so much is there to tell as to what actually happened with Bob Chappell, but people have got to be spoken to.
Yep.
I think the one attribute I might be able to bring into the case in Tasmania is my task force experience, and what that means really is this way of approaching something with this broader, bigger mindset. Nothing is to be discounted, nothing should be dismissed, and your landscape is as big as your imagination and as open as your mind can be. That's the key attribute of a task force detective. The biggest thing that intrigued me about the case was its isolation. There's not many unsolved homicides that happen on the water. It's almost a little bit of dead calm, isn't it? It's a case where there's no body. Except for the DNA of a homeless girl, there's no forensics really. There's no witnesses. There's no real murder weapon. There is nothing there that really hangs on Sue Neill-Fraser. However, it could be that this woman is very, very cunning.
Discover the magic of reading with the Advertiser and Sunday Mail's My Magical Story collection, featuring your favourite Disney and Pixar characters. Collect all 15 books for just $2.80 each when you buy the paper.
The people and South Australia. What a place to live.
And to have support for things that make it even better.
To us, that's big too.
Hold on to your handsets.
And strap in your SIM cards.
Things are about to get dataful.
These are the best of the best. The true masters of mobile. Champions of chat. Superstars of streaming.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to A Dataful Life.
Get a mobile or broadband plan today. Search Belong. It's a Dataful Life.
Did you know vitamins can help support your health? Try Nature's Way Vita Gummies for adults from Chemist Warehouse. Your loved ones can benefit from these great tasting soft chewable vitamins for only $9.97 each. Live, look, feel well at Chemist Warehouse.
It's the world's most colossal event. Over 100 million will be watching as Maroon 5 leads the entertainment spectacle. Don't miss the global phenomenon, Super Bowl 2019, today on Mate and streaming live.
From an inmate of Brisbane Prison, your conversation is subject to monitoring and recording. If you do not wish to accept this call, hang up now.
Hi, Mum.
Hi, darling.
Yesterday I put up some fences for some electrics to keep the horses in, and just been moving water troughs around to make sure all the animals have water.
I think you're a clone of me, to be honest. You seem to be doing, you think like me and you do all the things that I used to do.
Well, Bob's been missing for almost 3 years now, and Mum's been in jail for 2 1/4. This is not what we had all envisaged we'd be doing with our lives. I'm here, I'm on the farm, and yeah, like in some ways it's great, but it'd be really great if Mum was here to help me. And there's too many unanswered questions. What happened to Bob? Where is he? Where is his body? Why? And until we've got answers to those, we're just not going to be satisfied. Do you find that you're crying still? Do you feel that do you get upset?
Whenever, it's just at odd moments I find tears dripping down into the keyboard of the computer for no reason I can identify, and then I have to think, and I think, oh, I know what this is. Yeah, it sneaks up on you. I miss him terribly, Sarah. His sharp curiosity and incisiveness, I found that very attractive. I don't think I'll ever be able to really get over it. I mean, he's been stolen away from us, and his life's been stolen away from him, and it's just the most terrible thing.
Members of Susan Neill-Fraser's family full of hope as they entered court this morning, hope which quickly turned to anger.
We are extremely disappointed with the decision of the Tasmanian Court of Criminal Appeal.
They vowed to keep fighting until she is acquitted and released.
It seems perhaps not a lot has been learnt from the Lindy Chamberlain case. Thank you.
Every day I wake up and I feel a burden of responsibility. Like, I need to keep fighting for her. I need to do something to get her out. I know how strong I am, and I know that I'll continue to fight for Mum for the rest of my life if that's what it takes. And I think that there's something empowering about knowing that you are fighting for something you really believe in. And if you really believe in something, you can't just walk away.
When you start looking at this case, there are just so many people, but at the heart of it is Sue Neill-Fraser, and this photo makes me cry. This is Sue on Australia Day, and that's the day she supposedly murdered Bob. They had a white dinghy, and on the night that Bob went missing, he was staying to do some repairs, and Sue took that dinghy back to shore. It was the first night Bob had ever stayed on the yacht alone. And there he was, moored out in the middle of the Derwent, and it looked like no one was home. Maybe somebody went on board and they just went to steal something. The biggest clue was that there was DNA found on the yacht, on the starboard side, on the walkway. It is matched to a homeless girl who was 15 at the time. And in court, they said that it was a secondary transfer, that her DNA probably got there on the boot of a policeman. So I want to find out, what was that girl's DNA doing on the yacht?
Discover the magic of reading with the Advertiser and Sunday Mail's My Magical Story collection, featuring your favourite Disney and Pixar characters. Collect all 15 books for just $2.80 each when you buy the paper.
The people and South Australia. What a place to live.
And to have support for things that make it even better.
To us, that's big too.
With more than 100 online degrees that revolve around you, you can change the path your career takes. Get the qualifications you need to take on the world. Let your passion take flight and make a difference to the world around you. Study with a leading Australian university in graduate employment and salary outcomes. Charles Darwin University, the university for your new world.
The apocalypse is in 8 days.
We need the full force of the Academy.
Bingo. At the start of an investigation, it's almost like having a whole set of doors in front of you. They're avenues. We call them avenues of inquiry. And those doors are closed, and you've got to be able to open one that's going to take you down a path that may well solve the crime. So what you're looking for is the handle to the door.
The day Bob Chappell went missing, the Four Winds was found sinking in Sandy Bay. Local boat salvager Chris Smith was called out to stop the yacht from going under.
It was really important for me to talk to Chris Smith, who was the salvage engineer who salvaged the yacht. And he also is the owner of the Four Winds. He bought the yacht and hadn't made any changes, so the old crime scene was still there for me to walk around and assess. That was invaluable to me.
The bow was nearly under, and the stern was up in the air, so no water got in the stern cabin.
Police suspected the boat had been sabotaged. But who by? Bob, Sue, or someone else? Colin wants to see for himself.
The scuttling of the boat is really important to understand who did it. First of all, two pipes are the focus of the water coming in. One of the pipes of the toilet was cut and the water gushed in.
You wouldn't cut a hose like that on purpose. Not there anyway, you could just undo the hose clamps and pull it off the valve if you're going to change the hose.
The other pipe is controlled by a valve, and the valve was opened. And the opening of that valve would do what?
Oh, that's water in, but it's only it's only a ½ inch.
So to open it is to know that it's going to flood.
Yeah.
And to cut that other hose in the toilet is to know that it's going to flood.
Yes.
That's interesting. The second issue with the scuttling, and this is really important, is the bilge pumps. And a bilge pump is a pump that automatically kicks in if it senses water coming in. The bilge pumps were switched off. The chances of Bob Chappell doing that to himself on his own yacht, to kill the bilge pumps that could save his life, save his yacht, I can't even understand that. I can't even accept that. It's just when you group these three overt acts, each of them is an overt act, right? It's a very deliberate thing to do. That's what an overt act is, okay? First of all, cutting of that toilet pipe is an overt act for sabotage. Opening of the disused toilet valve is an overt act consistent with sabotage. And most of all, the bilge pumps. They're all acts of sabotage. And of course, Bob's gone, the ultimate foul play. Can only be a homicide.
On the night Bob disappeared, Sandy Bay was filled with yachts. There may have been key witnesses on those boats, moored close to the Four Winds.
When you look at the first 48 hours of the Tasmanian Police inquiry or investigation, and there's not a lot of door-to-door inquiries going on. There's not a lot of yacht-to-yacht inquiries. You would expect that every single yacht on that section of the harbour would have been spoken to. You would have names and address of the owners, the occupiers, perhaps some sort of summation as to whether they've got any criminal histories or there's been any altercations. So there's a lot you could glean from the water, and there was very little, in fact there was nothing on the investigation log to suggest all of these inquiries took place. I just huddled up and got my notebook out and did the door-to-doors and did the yacht-to-yachts. And in that I got to talk to cray fishermen and general fishermen and yachties and hobbyists. And I guess I spoke to maybe up to 100 different people. Had a really good series of meetings with 4 or 5 old guys from the yacht club, and basically what they were saying was they all felt that the woman Sue was innocent of these charges, and that's just their opinion based on being locals and yachties. Basically what they were saying was they were pointing me towards a particular fellow that was also living on a yacht, a much smaller yacht. It was occupied by a fellow they kept calling a piss pot, a jailbird, that was their terms. A guy called Paul. He was always a drinker of Bundy and Coke, and he was as rough as guts. Paul often had jailbirds on his yacht, sleeping and living and coming and going, and the yacht club didn't like this, and Paul would bring them across for a drink. This is what I call really interesting information, really important evidence, and it's the sort of stuff that you'd expect to be gathering as you're investigating this homicide, if it's a homicide, or this disappearance of this Bob Chappell. This is probably one of the most circumstantial cases in Australian history. There is no case like it. It's so circumstantial, so questionable, her guilt or innocence. Yet she's been convicted by a just jury of 12 people and jailed for a long, long time. The juries do get it wrong at times, devastatingly wrong. What if she was presented with the most perfect premise a woman who wants out of this relationship could ever want?
96 hours of surveillance footage, and she clearly wasn't there.
I can't remember.
There is a big bloody black mark against Sue Neill-Fraser.
I'm here on a legal matter. Am I safe?
If you're legal matter, probably not.
A long dark hair, never tested.
You're joking.
If someone's a compulsive liar, how do you know when they're ever telling the truth?